My husband said he was renting out the basement for extra income, and I believed him because our electric bill was killing us, and we had just had a baby in New Jersey, and I was exhausted enough to sign anything if it meant less stress. He said a woman named Tara needed a place for a few months. Quiet tenant, no problem. She'd use the basement bathroom and the side entrance, and we barely know she was there. And that last part turned out to be more accurate than he meant. The weird part was that he never let me meet her. He always handled the rent in cash, said she worked nights, said she was private, said she'd feel more comfortable without formal introductions, which I accepted because I was operating on 3 hours of sleep and a newborn and had stopped having opinions about anything that didn't directly involve the baby's feeding schedule. Then I noticed the good towels were disappearing, then my perfume, which had been a gift and which I had been rationing because we couldn't afford to replace it, then my red hair tie from the bathroom counter, then one of my post-pregnancy bras, which I'd like to point out is a deeply specific thing to steal and not something you take by accident. That's when I started checking the basement myself. The lock had been changed. He said it was for safety, said it quickly and without looking at me, which is how people answer questions they've already rehearsed. So I used the spare key from the garage, the one he'd forgotten I knew about, opened the basement door while he was asleep, and found a woman's coat draped on a chair, a second toothbrush in a cup next to the sink, a half-drunk bottle of wine on the floor with 2 glasses, and a framed photo turned face down on the desk like someone had set it there in a hurry. The photo was of him and her at the Jersey Shore, her head tilted toward him, his arm around her waist, both of them squinting into the sun the way people do when they're comfortable with each other, which is its own kind of information. There was a date written on the back in his handwriting, 6 weeks earlier, which was 3 weeks after I had given birth. I stood there in the basement for a long time, not because I was shocked exactly, but because I was doing the math. How many nights he'd come upstairs smelling like takeout and telling me he'd been handling tenant stuff? How many Saturday errands that ran an hour longer than they should have? How many times he'd said I looked tired in a way that now felt less like concern and more like relief? The tenant didn't exist. Tara was his girlfriend, and the basement wasn't rented. It was their place while I was directly above them with our newborn, thinking he was just tired from work. I took pictures of everything. Then I did the worst and best thing I've ever done. I waited until he came home with takeout and acted completely normal. Let him kiss my forehead, let him ask how the baby was sleeping, let him put his keys on the counter and start unpacking the food, like a man who believed he was getting away with something. Then I handed him the framed photo and said, "Do you want to explain why your girlfriend's toothbrush is in my basement?" He didn't even deny it. He just sat down at the kitchen table and started crying like a child, the kind of crying that wants to be comforted, that expects you to close the distance. I didn't. I told him he could cry in front of the baby monitor while I packed. The baby slept through the whole thing, which I've always thought was good timing on her part.